are twin flames? Is it a real phenomenon, or is it something that's simply been made up? And I'm here to tell you, as a spiritual psychologist, intuitive psychologist, channel psychic, having been a practitioner in the field for the past 10-11 years, and somebody that is actively on the twin flame journey and has known that since I was 12 years old, from a very vibrant and electrical dream that I had at that age that stuck with me, that the twin flame phenomenon is in fact very real. So the term twin flame has actually hit the mainstream recently, because there's been documentaries that were made around certain individuals that had created a almost like cult-like following for people that were, in a vulnerable position and seeking, love and connection with others. And they coined the phrase twin flames and sort of warped it into something that it wasn't, and spread a lot of misinformation about it. Now, at this point in history on planet Earth, there is a very, very small number of people that are actually twin flames, or, headed for twin flame union. And the reason for that is that twin flames, or the particular connection of a twin flame, is a very, very deeply embedded spiritual bond. So in order for you to even manifest an initial meeting with your twin flame, you have to have reached a certain level of soul evolutionary growth in order to actually even come into vibratory alignment with your twin flame. And the reason for this is that the bond itself is not formed or able to sustain any level of trauma. So this is why when spiritually twin flames first come into contact or union, they initially go into a period of separation. And it's very, very widely documented, this period of separation. And the reason that happens is because the spiritual bond between the two, when it becomes activated and they physically meet, causes a spiritual awakening. And essentially, because the spiritual bond is so it's like a purified wire that runs between two of them, they essentially become each other's connection to God, to source, whatever it is that you want to call it. And it's almost like this current runs between both of them, that anything that prohibits the connection coming together. So we're talking old programming, any distorted ideas around love. And often with twin flames, what you'll find is that there'll be certain religious differences. There'll be things that cross a lot of divides, interesting age dynamics. One may have children, one may not. It can be sort of, nationalities, people from different places, but it'll often cross a lot of divides in order to sort of heal any additional separation that's been embedded in the human psyche, not only for the individual, but also for the collective. Which is why the soul has to be at a certain level of evolutionary growth. The individual has to have a certain level of emotional intelligence, of self-awareness, of being able to be, self-aware, to look at own behaviors in order to actually come into union with their twin flame. And the interesting thing about it is that because of the nature of the connection itself, the soul is so hell-bent on merging with the other, of coming into union with the other, that it suddenly becomes very intense. And you'll often find dynamically, and with the other clients that I've worked with as well, is that initially on meeting, it's the female that's the feminine that's more aware of the connection. The male then retreats and sort of has to go and figure out what's going on, which is a natural state for sort of men that are in their healthy masculinity, which again is a byproduct of soul evolution and growth, to actually go back and assess what's happening and to do their own research before they sort of move forward towards the connection anyway. So because this sort of idea of twin flames has been taken and sort of spread out to the masses, people are not necessarily understanding the nature of the connection itself. And it doesn't mean to say, obviously, that there isn't soulmate connections that people have as well. And of course, there's karmic connections where people enter into relationships to resolve trauma, to resolve issues from the past as well that need to come up to do with their own healing. But the twin flame connection, as I say, is specifically created from a higher vibratory state based on the soul's level of evolutionary growth. So in order to sort of be able to see whether or not you've actually come into contact with your twin flame, because a lot of people go into this questioning phase after they meet somebody, or, it feels pretty intense. And sometimes the intensity can be based on a karmic connection. And what sort of differentiates that between when you actually meet your twin flame. And the twin flame connection is an interesting one, because even though there is an initial period of separation, it's different for, every twin pair. But what generally happens is the connection of love deepens even though there's complete distance, perhaps no contact at all. And it's that the deepening feeling of love deepens over time, and it continues to deepen however long the twins are at a distance from each other. And it's just this feeling of this merging with the other, essentially, that doesn't make any sense to the logical mind, because it's sort of outside the construct of the known parameters of what it means to actually form a relationship with somebody. So that's one of the main things that happens. The second thing is sort of feeling the other person physically around you. And it's not when you're in a state of meditation. It's not when you're sort of like, trying to visualize anything, or it's often when you're not thinking about anything at all and you can physically feel their presence come in. And this is because obviously when we talk about the soul evolutionary growth, is that, whether the individual, in the twin flame partnership is aware of it or not, they'll have reached a certain level of evolutionary growth where their soul will know how to astral travel. It'll know how to walk in different planes and bilocate as well, whether or not you're consciously aware that you're able to do that or not. So this is what you're often feeling around you, is that the soul obviously wants to merge with the other, and this happens on both sides. So what generally happens, and I've had instances in the past where people have gone into what's called a spiritual psychosis as well. So I'm able to differentiate that and see the difference between people that have experienced that as well, because obviously these are things that have to be experienced on both sides in order for it to be a twin flame connection. And there'll obviously be a high level of attraction on both sides, and there's this overwhelming sense of peace as well when you are in the same space with the other. But it's the feeling of the expansion of love, the expansion of wholeness for the other that exists in the connection, that expands over time, even when there's complete separation, distance, no contact at all. And there are other factors obviously as well, is seeing synchronicities, or thinking that you're seeing the other person when you're out and about, but obviously seeing synchronicities that remind you of the other person a lot as well, that sort of come out of nowhere even when you're not thinking about it. But it's more to do with, obviously, you get sort of you thinking a lot about the other person as well, which again, I don't necessarily like to use that as an example when it comes to differentiation, because that's something that people can experience when it comes to karmic connections as well, just to not confuse it. But generally with twin flames is that they hold the divine print, they hold the blueprint for divine love. So it blasts out anything that stands between separation, any conditions when it comes to love. And you can sense there's sort of this essence, or this energetic between people that are in a divine love twin flame connection. It's just a different level because it's formed at a different vibratory level altogether. So I hope that clears it up for you. And if you've been questioning it, please drop your experiences in the comments below. I'm always really interested to know other people's experiences as well, particularly because this is something that is coming, people are starting to question, has come to light recently as well. But yeah, twin flames, very real thing, as are soulmates and karmic connections, but I'll talk about those another day.